Okay, so one of the things, if you are following along, let's just do this. If you are following along, go ahead and open up Unreal, just the Unreal editor here. And with Unreal, when you first start a project, if for those of you that are in my class and are at RIT, maybe in the labs or something, we do have this, I don't know, situation that the way they install is that when they update the computers, sometimes the new update doesn't recognize that the version of Unreal is already installed. So when you first open up Unreal, you just, open up the window key and just type Unreal, and then the Epic Games Launcher comes up, and that's what this is, the Epic Game Launcher. And there is a store, if it goes, and this is like your game store. There's a library, and then down here is the Unreal Engine. And the Unreal Engine is where all of this stuff resides. Okay, so there's this is basically like your notes on any kind of news or information, any new things that are coming out about Unreal will be here. Then if you want to learn Unreal, that is over here. There are, again, some tutorials and a bunch of different things that you can find out about. There's full projects, like I talked about the Meerkat demo at one point, and you can actually download the whole video or movie as an Unreal project and dig into it and see what kind of stuff that they did. So you basically can learn from seeing what other people's projects are. There's the marketplace that has all of the stuff that you can, buy and go in there. But I would recommend that if you are planning to use Unreal, that every month there is a free for the month thing, and you can go in there, and these are all the current things that you can download for the month. And usually it's really high quality stuff, but you can also do, find free stuff on there, and those things you can use in your projects. So go ahead and do those. Okay, so one of the things that one of the places that you'll be in the most is going to be in this library. And this is where I was saying that sometimes the labs at RIT don't necessarily recognize that you have some of these versions in here, and it'll say like, oh, you need to install, like, so this one is saying update right now, and so it'll say install in there. So if it says install, what you do is you just click on the button install. I'm not going to click on this update because I don't want to update it. It'll take a while, but you just start to click on install and then stop it with the little stop button up there. Then close Unreal, then reopen Unreal. And by clicking update or clicking install, what it does is it just makes the links to where it's going to sit in the system. And then Unreal will be available to you to just open. And so over here, there's a little launch button, and I'm just going to launch Unreal 4.27. You can use anything lower, 4.23, 26, whatever you happen to use. Version 5 is a new version that is going to be, well, visually, it's completely different than all of the other versions. It's not completely different, but there's a lot of changes that, a little bit of rearranging for the GUI set. So anyways, I'm just going to launch it, and you can launch your window too. I'm starting this first. I'm launching it first so that we open up our project and create a new project. When we create a new project, the first time you create a new project in Unreal, it can take a while for it to load. And what it's doing is it's like setting up the scene. It's rendering a bunch of different stuff. So you'll see in a minute. When I timed it, it took 27 minutes. So we're gonna open it now. We're gonna start it, and then I'll go into the Maya stuff. And probably by the end of the Maya stuff, the Unreal project will finally open up. Now, when you open up an Unreal project for the first time, again, it takes a little while, but after that, when you open up a new project, like you can see, I've already created this animation beginner project, and this is something that I'll send a link. I'll show you the link and download. that you can download the complete project. So all of the things that I'm talking about, I've made a zip project that you will be able to download and have all of the stuff that I've created and imported. And so all of that stuff that I've talked about are going to be in this project that you can open up. But what we are going to do is we're looking at doing this for film and television and live events. So that's what the scope of this film or this workshop is about. So I'm going to select film, television, live events, and then I'm just going to go to next. And then when I go to next, there are a bunch of different stuff that you can do. A lot of this stuff is really more for virtual production, like these other things. But I'm just going to open up a blank scene. So blank scene's fine, has some cameras, whatever. We'll hit next. And then what it's going to do is it's going to ask you, okay, what do you want in your scene? Now, in here, you can start with some starter content, or you can start with no starter content. I'm going to keep it super simple right now, and we'll just start it with no starter content. And then also ray tracing is disabled by default. We'll just stick with the defaults for right now. We'll just leave ray tracing off. Okay, then down at the bottom, we're going to need a place to put the project. Okay, so right now this is going to my animation games workshop, and the project, you know, I'll call it, I don't know, what do we want to call it? Animation start, something like that. Okay, so I have this animation start folder, and that is going to be the name of the folder that this is going to be. So it's going to be in this directory, and it's going to create an animation start folder in there. So I am going to create the project, and you can see it does a little bit of running, and then only one instance of the game can be running. That's fine. I think I do only have one instance of the game running. Yep, good. Okay. So as you can see, the print is probably way too fine, but you'll see it doing a lot of stuff, and it's basically setting up the room, the environment. It's compiling some shaders and a whole bunch of things. And oh, well, there you go. It didn't take me too long. That's great. It may take you, I'm guessing, anywhere between like now and 30 minutes. So we are just going to leave this project alone. If your thing takes faster, that's fine. If it's a little bit longer, no worries. Okay, so while that's doing that, the overall process of the way that we are going to be getting files from, you know, any animation, I'm going to be talking specifically about Maya, but you can use anything. I'm going to be using FBX files. If you want to use Blender from, if you want to do an FBX from Blender, or if you want to do FBXs from Studio Max, whatever you want, you can get an FBX file out of. You can pull that into Unreal as far as character animations going. If you're looking to bring in like just a still model, you know, you can bring it in as an OBJ or an FBX, either one, and that will work fine. Okay, so we're going to be using FBX files, and an FBX file, if you don't know, is a file that, like an OBJ file, has just the object file. It's really just geometry data. FBX file is I forget what it stands for, but it's like the I don't know, file something exchange. And so binary exchange. And so what it can handle is you can have cameras in there, you can have joints, you can have, you know, a bunch of different data lights in there, the whole bunch of things. So you can transfer that in. And generally FBX files are a sort of standard that that a lot of different computers can handle. I will say that Blender is, if you're using an FBX file, Blender will only accept, as far as I'm aware, ASCII, ASCII, ASCII files, which is a file that you can read, not the binary type. So just something to be aware. Okay, So some other things to be aware of. We are going to have a character that we have for my students that have had my class before. We're going to use the Legman character. And I've had to rework it, and I'll show you what those reworks are. But if we're going from, like, say, Maya to Unreal, there are some certain things that you need to be aware of for that transfer to go well and have expected results when you get into Unreal. Okay, so the first one is that your character should have a root bone that stays at 0, 0, 0 at all times. And by 0, 0, 0, it's basically just the world center. Okay, so you'll have a bone at the world center, and then you'll have like your control, like the main control that will move the whole character. But that root bone will stay at the center at all times. Now, when I was first learning Unreal, I thought, hey, I don't need that. I can do whatever. I've worked in, I've done plenty of films and things before. But what ends up happening is that root bone being at 0, 0, 0, when you bring it into Unreal, you can take your model and you can put it at 0, 0, 0, and it will fit into the scene exactly where you want it to be. If you don't do that, then you're going to have to be guessing and trying to match things up. So that's why I have this first, because this was one of my first mistakes going into Unreal, was that I thought, sure, you need a root bone. That's fine. I don't need that. I can tell you what, save yourself some headaches and make sure that you have a root bone that is at 0, 0, 0. Okay. If joints are not connected to the root bone, find a way to connect them. And so what I mean by that is that you might have like maybe some shoulders, and those shoulders are, you have your root bone is like the center of, or you have the pelvis bone that's the center of your character or something like that. And then maybe you just have a parent constraint towards the shoulder. So instead of actually being connected to the shoulder, you have it constrained as just a constraint in Maya. That's not going to fly. Okay, so what you'll need to do is even if you have that constraint constraining the joint, you're still going to want that shoulder joint to be attached to your root joint. Okay, and the joints may look funny, but all you're really doing is just making the connection. So you have one skeleton has one root, and off of that root, everything else is connected. Also, if I'm talking too fast, just let me know so I could, slow down or whatever. Okay, your skin. The skin has to be bound to the bones. It can't just be parented. Okay, so if you have a character, right, the geometry, and you want that character to animate in some way in Unreal, you need to have it skinned to a joint. Okay, that joint could be floating out in space, whatever, and then you have the skin attached to it. That's fine, but it won't move around with the joint unless you have it skinned. If you just have it parented or parent constrained to the joint, when you pull it into Unreal, Unreal doesn't look at constraints or anything like that. So you'll find that that you'll always need to have your skin attached to that joint. Okay. You can have blend shapes. Some people have, I've heard students say, oh, but you can't have blend shapes in Unreal. Yes, you can have blend shapes or morph targets if you're coming from Maya, or I think Blender, I don't know what Blender calls them. I think they're morph targets, maybe from Blender. But you need to, when you import your character in, you need to turn on the option that that says that you're going to have blend shapes or morph targets on this thing. And I'm going to show you where that stuff is. Okay. And I'm also going to show, all of the stuff that I'm talking about, but I'm just kind of giving an overview of what you should be aware of when you're importing a character. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
I have a quick question. One of
Sure.
the people asked, can the joints overlap?
The joints can overlap. Yep. And
Thank you.
so like I have in my eyes, I have a joint, and then I have another joint on top of that with another joint going out for the eyelids. So you'll see that I have the character joint and then another one extended out. So there's like 3 joints actually in the eye joint that are all overlapping. So yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for pointing that question out. Okay, so the morph targets or blend shapes, you need to make sure that the targets are in object space, not tangent space. And again, I'll show you what they are. Just make a note that this is very important, that you have it in object space. If you put it in tangent space, it's going to end up exploding. And again, I'll show you how that all works. Basic texturing, you'll want to have different shaders per different objects, or you can have faces, like you can have a character with you can highlight a face and apply a shader to it. But what you'll want is whatever kind of shaders you have there, that you have different shaders applied to your object, so that when you import it in, it'll come in with a list of shaders. You just don't want one shader applied or no shader applied, because when you bring it into Unreal, you can't specifically go in and select faces and say, okay, put a shader here. You need to have all of that set up outside of Unreal. Okay. And then I think one of the last things here, Unreal unit of measure is 1 unit. There's one unit of Unreal is 1 centimeter. Just like Maya, 1 unit is 1 centimeter by default. Now, that might not make too big of a deal. Like you might be like, okay, fine, whatever. But the lighting and any particle effects that you have in this works off of real world scale. So when you open up Maya, a lot of times you'll just kind of like zoom into the square. When you create a Maya cube, that thing is 1 centimeter, and essentially that's like about this big, right? That's 1 centimeter. So if your character is this big, when you make a cube and it's sitting there, your character is only going to be that big. So if you want a full-size character, you need to make sure that you scale them up appropriately to where 1 centimeter or 1 Maya unit or 1 Unreal unit is 1 centimeter. So another one of those things where I was just like, that's fine, I don't need to know about that. But then later on, I was like, oh, now I see. So you'll want to do that. So you want to make sure that your thing is scaled up. And then one last thing is that what I personally do is I like to have everything set up in Unreal. I like to have everything set up in Maya so that when I bring it into Unreal, I don't have to do any scale adjustments. I don't have to flip the coordinate of the object. I want it to go from Maya, what I can see in Maya, to exactly what is going to be the same thing when I bring it into Unreal. The world vector, or the world, oops, no questions yet. The world coordinate system, if I pull this in, okay, so this is my character, and I'm going to give you a link here. I'm going to give you all a link. This is, I'm going to put this in the chat. This is going to be to the Unreal character. Paste. There we go. Okay, so this is going to be the Unreal character that I currently have right here. Okay, this is the one that I've prepared for Unreal. I'm also going to put another link in the chat, and that link in the chat here, this second link, I'll put in here that this is going to be that one. That second link is going to be all of the files that we're going to be using for today. So I've, as I was preparing this kind of workshop, I was going through and making all of this stuff. And so all of the things that we're going to make today, I've put into one folder, and that's going to be a rather large a large download. So if you want to just work with what we're doing today, like if you want to work with my character, you can just grab that first link that I posted in there, and that will be the one that works into Unreal. But what I'm going to do right now is, you see I have my little leg character there. This is the original that I worked from, that I started from. So this is one that I use in my class, and my students are probably cringing just thinking about going back to Legman, but or leg person here. But here it is, and it's a very simple character, and you can move it around, and he's legendary. Yeah. Okay, so the way that I created this character is that all I did is, if I select a piece of geometry here, so if I select the high character, you can see that this character is parent constrained. And essentially all I did is I had a joint and I had my geometry, and I just said, okay, make a constraint, attach these two. Whenever I move one, the other one moves as well. Okay, so that's the way that I did this, because I made this character for an introductory class on, and it just kind of gets students interested, or starts them learning about how to rig. So that's just the quickest way to attach it. Okay. What's some other things about this character? Yeah, that's pretty much it. It doesn't have, if I turn on the joints, turn on my joints here. If I turn on the joints, you can see that this character, yep. Hello? No, okay. You can see that this character doesn't have any eye joints in here. Again, this is all done, all of the controls for this character. If I turn off this, all of this is done with grouping, just grouping and constraining. That's all that the eye control is. And then it's constrained to this eye control, and I can move the eyes around, and I can also blink them if you just click on this and make the eyelids go up and down. Okay, so this is the simple thing. So in that second link that I have, this character is in there. If you wanted to play around with it and look at the differences between these two, that could be something that might be helpful for you. Here is the one that I reworked to work with Unreal. So I'm going to turn on the joints. And what else am I going to do? Turn on the joints. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So you can see a couple things. One is the root joint. So in this one, if I open up leg person and I look in joints, and I have a root joint here, and that root joint is right now located at 0, 0. Okay. If I grab this character from this main move and I move the character around, you can see that the character, the joint, is still sitting here at 0, 0. Okay, I think I also have another, not entirely sure, I forget what the other joint is that I had in there for that second one that's going down. I don't know, I kind of made this a little bit in haste, but let's see, my hip joints, yeah, hip joints are up there. Maybe those are for the eyes. Oh, the reverse heel, perhaps, I don't know. So you can go and kick the tires around. That's neither here nor there. Anyways, the character though is skinned to the joints. So I went and did, like, I would select the geometry and select the joint, the main root joint, and just did a skin, bind skin, and then bound it how you would. If you want to know about binding and binding skins, you can find that, or ask me offline, and I can point you in some directions on how to bind your character. But the main point is that you need to have your character skinned. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to show here is that as a demonstration, I purposely left, you can see the two legs here. One is smooth, one is not. If I take you know, the geometry and I just, you know, press 3. Well, I can't anymore, but you know, a lot of times in Maya, if you have, say, like a create polygon cube, if I have a cube here and I press 3, it's going to smooth that object out, right? And that's, you know, if you're rendering in Maya, that'd be fine. It would render and it would look smooth and everything would be hunky-dory. When you're bringing it into Unreal, there is not that smooth option. So you need to make sure that you smooth your object before bringing it in. So I made one of them smooth, and the way that I did it is, you know, with this kind of as an example, if I put it back into one, I took and created a smooth node on it. So I selected the cube and I went to mesh and I just did a smooth on it. Boom. Okay, so then it would smooth, and you can, you know, you can divide that however much you want and make it as smooth as you want. But one of the things that you need to do here is that that you need to kill the history on it. So you can see that there's a poly smooth face. You actually have to let's see, poly smooth or just smooth. Yeah, the smooth preview, that's what I'm saying, doesn't work. Like this pressing 3 is a smooth preview, that won't work. You have to put a smooth on it. So like if I put it as like 2 here, then I would need to do a delete history, which is this button up here. So now all of that history has been baked into the geometry. Okay, so you need to have whatever smoothing you're going to have for your geometry actually done to your geometry before you go in and get ready to bring it into Unreal, and then also delete the history on it. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to talk about here is that the face. I have Blendshapes on this, and if I go into Windows, go down to Animation Editor and Shape Editor, okay, I've created some Blendshapes on this, and I've done them in a way that I have it either in tangent space or object space. And you might be wondering, well, what does that even mean? What that means is that if I select this object and I did like create blend shape, it makes this blend shape node. Okay. Once you have this blend shape node, you can see that you know, I have that blend shape, this add target shows up. Excuse me. And this add target will allow you to change the shape of your geometry, right? So that I can have this thing smiling like that. I just made 2 smiles here. But the difference in these 2 smiles, when I did add target, let's see, if I go into create, there's add target. In the option box of that add target, you have the option to be either, you can have it do automatic, which probably will put it into tangent space, but I specifically wanted it to have a tangent space version and a object space version, just to be able to show you when we bring this into Unreal what the difference is between the two. But you'll find that the object space, you'll want to make it sure that it's object space, and then you hit apply or apply and close. And then you can see that it makes the orange one. That's the one that you want. You want an orange little circle target on there. And then you could just take the vertices and you can make them, you know, do whatever you want. If I wanted to pull his face down, you can see it's in edit. You shut off edit mode, and then, you know, then you have this new target to it. Okay. I'm just going to undo this for right now, and we'll just keep it with whatever we're doing. But if you're taking notes, when you import blend shapes from ZBrush, are they tangent or object space? That is a good question. I honestly don't know. I believe they are object space. That, yeah, that would be a good, I should take note on that. I'm going to take note on that. I'm gonna find out about that. That is a good question. Let me just find my tangent space. Yeah, I'm just putting it in my notes. Good. Okay, so yeah, that would be something to definitely find out about. I believe, like I said, I believe it's object space. Okay. Yeah, please. Yeah, definitely ask me next week. So when I am, when I've done my blend shapes and have whatever kind of face shapes I want, that's fine. The other thing that I wanted to also mention is the coloring. Like right now, you can see that there's some different colors on this character. I'm going to shut off the joints. And I'll shut off my controls so you can easily see it. So you can see that I just have some simple color on there. I didn't put on any textures. I honestly don't think his body is set up with UVs. If I look at his UVs, they're probably a mess. Some things like his shoulders and his arms have some UVs to them, but I forgot to lay out his body. So there it is. If you want me to go in and fix it and you want to use this guy for whatever, I could probably go in and do that. But the main point is that I do have for each of the character or each one of the parts that I have essentially a Lambert color, and it doesn't matter what you use for this. If you use a Lambert or a Blinn or whatever kind of shader you use for this, like if I have the body color, if I pull this down here and then, see the insides and out. So this is basically just the body color of this character. And so all of the texturing that you're going to be doing for the character is going to be like in Unreal. You can texture in Substance, export out your textures, and also pull those into Unreal. But what I mean is that for whatever part that you want to have a texture on, you also want to make sure that there's a shader associated with that part. So that, and then if like you have, shiny bolts, you don't need a specific shader for each bolt, but you can use the same shader for each bolt. That's fine. Yeah, so just be aware that you want to have, I just went through and named these, and you can play around with that. So you want those textures. You want shaders set up for the textures. And the way that I did it is I like named it skin, and I think I have pants and shoes, and I think hands. So quite simply, that is the thing about that character. I'll also do one more talking bit about the eyes. Again, with the character's eyes, I have the joints here. So in the joints, I have these, I have an eye joint coming out here, going to the center of the eyeball. And then I have another joint right here that's at the center of the eye. And then I have just a tip that's going out there. And that tip is then skinned, or actually this joint is skinned to the top lid. And then this bottom joint is skinned to the bottom lid, and the middle eye joint, wherever it is, that eye joint is skinned to the geometry of the eye. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? I know I've kind of covered a little bit of ground here. Any questions that you might have that that might be cropping up?
I had a quick question.
Yep.
Hi.
Hey.
So coming back to like the root joint, so does that mean that with any character that you rig that you want to bring into Unreal, if you want to bring it into Unreal, when you rig it with the skeleton, you have to have at least one joint at 000, and then connect that any loose joints that aren't connected, so that
that's
Unreal can like reference it when it moves.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Well, it's so that you can put your character, like you can bring your character in, put them at 000 at 0, and then when they start moving off, you'll have your whole world and your character's root joint locked. So even if they go out there, it'll still know like how far away from that your character is. On the first film that I did with MJ, I didn't have a root joint initially. I ended up having to later go back and create that root joint. But then I was just like putting the character in space and they had to jump on a swing. And, you know, you can imagine trying to line the, you know, the character up just so that once they started running, that once they're on the swing, that they all matched up. And so that's how I learned the hard way that you needed that root joint.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's see. Is that the joint you start with, or can you add it later? I totally made this up later. I mean, for me, I took my Legman character that I had, and then I just kind of like broke it down and then added that joint later. I just put it at the middle and then just had this hip joint parent down to that center joint. Yeah. Okay. All right. And then any other questions before I go on? Okay. So we'll start getting into like setting up. How do you set up your film or get it going? So the way that that I found is a good practice to do is that if you start out with a new scene, and I'm not gonna save that. If you start out with a new scene, and you know, in film, you generally want to reference your characters into a scene. I mean, that's just best practices that you'll reference your character into a scene. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Maya, referencing in means like kind of like a film editor. You know, you take in kind of like a copy of the footage, and when you make some cuts to it, it doesn't actually harm the footage. It's just saying, okay, we're taking this copy and we're making these changes to it. That's essentially what you're doing, is you're bringing in a copy that points to the original, but you aren't actually bringing the original. So to do that, I'm going into File, and I'm going to go to you know, reference editor. I'll just open the reference editor. So this is the reference editor. And I'm going to create a new reference by clicking on the little plus button here. And I'm going to find my little character here. So I'm going to go to, right now it's in my animator beginning. And this is the folder that you guys, if you download the second link, you'll have access to this animation beginner folder. And this has the entire Unreal project in it. This file, the Maya files, and also this excuse me, this PowerPoint are the only things that aren't what you would have in an Unreal project. So an Unreal project, unlike Maya, where you can have little bits of it, to have an Unreal project, you have to have the entire project. If you're going to be moving things, you need to move the entire project. I've recently learned about source control, which is where you can you get into parts of it, but you know, on a basic level, you're going to want to take the entire project and bring it with you wherever you go, whatever computer you have. So, but I have this Maya file, and in the Maya file, I have my leg person rigged with arms, legs, and eyes for Unreal. That's the one that I'm going to be using. Okay, so I'm referencing in this character. Now, the other thing that happens when you reference in over here is this thing called namespaces. Now, we have leg person, right? And if we wanted to bring in another leg person, we're going to have two leg people. And to help Maya or any other program not crash those names and, you know, actually know who they are, what it likes to do is use these namespaces. So it'll tack, you might have seen this already, that it'll tack like the name of the file on there or something at the beginning of your file, and then the rest of the character's outline. So what I want to do, what I would like to do is I'm using use namespaces, and then I'm going to click on this use selected namespace as a parent. And so this is going to be my leg person 1. I'm just going to bring this in. I'm going to call this person leg person 1, and then that's what is going to be prefaced in the thing. Okay, and I'll show you what I mean here when I hit reference. When I reference this character in, you can see now, if I go back to, if I have one of the old ones open, this is yeah, this is my original, right? And see how it's just called like Legman here. And there's nothing before that. Now, if I look at this referenced one, you can see that now before everything on this thing, it says leg person 1 geometry, leg person 1 joints, leg person 1 IK handles. This becomes a big deal when you're working from Maya to Unreal. Because like when I was first starting out, what I would do is, actually, let me back up. The workflow in Unreal is that you bring in a character, you bring in a rig, and then what you'll do is you'll just bring in that rig one time and you'll just keep reusing that one rig. And you'll just be reapplying new animation files to this rig. You want it to do something else, just apply another animation file to it. Just keep doing that. The problem becomes that say I had my character open, like this character. I had this character open and I exported it out for Unreal. This thing doesn't have any namespaces, right? So it's fine. This is going to be my rig. But then once I bring the character and I reference that character into a file that's going to be animated, I'll be doing best practices of using the reference editor, but it's going to have a namespace on it. Now, the problem comes in is that when we bring it into Unreal, what we brought in was that original character, right? And it didn't have the namespaces on. Now, when we bring in the animation, that animation is going to have the namespace of your character, and then you're going to drop it on top of, you're going to try and apply it to something that doesn't have the namespaces on it. And Unreal is just going to throw a fit, and it's going to be like, nope, can't find it. I have no idea what you're talking about. Never seen this person before in my life. But that's not the case. That's not what we want to have happen. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just creating like a character file. So what I would do is I would create a character file that would just have all of the characters in it that I would want to use. And I'm just exporting out the rig files from this character file. Okay. So if I wanted to have, one of the things that I was saying is that the scale of my character right now is very small, right? Well, actually, I'll just leave that for right now. We'll just leave that. We have one character. Just know that I have this this folder, and I'm going to call this thing. I'm going to do a file, and I'm going to save this scene. Save scene as let's go. It's not animation beginner, or what folder did we call this? We had animation start. So I'm going to create this animation start, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did before when I was doing this. I'm going to create a new folder in this Unreal project. I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this Maya files. Maya files. And in that Maya file, I am just going to rename this particular folder. I'm going to call this thing character export. Let's see, character underscore rig export, EXP. And yep, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to save that thing. Now I'm getting this thing because I don't know, there's some Python script that is not happy with me for some reason, but okay. So now what I have is I have a character rig file. If I wanted to bring in another character, I could just do a file and do, say I wanted this guy to talk to his, I don't know, their twin, right? So I have that character, and I'm going to create another reference. Okay, and then I'm going to call this reference. I'm going to find the reference, and it's going to be this leg person 4, and it's going to be the exact same character, but now under namespaces, it's not going to be leg person 1. This is going to be leg person 2. Okay. So yeah, so that's going to be not leg person 1, but leg person 2. And then I'm going to use that and then do a reference. And now what I should have is there's actually two characters there. There's leg person 1, leg person 2. If I select on one of these, I'm selecting leg person 1, and I'm just moving this character over. Okay. And I'm moving it over just so that you could see it. Otherwise, what I personally would do is I would just leave that person alone, or I would just leave them at the center. But I'm just showing you that there's two different characters, and one has the prefix of leg person 2. The other one has the prefix of leg person 1. Zoom in for all those, any of the cheap sheets. So leg person 1 and leg person 2. Function, and I'm going to zoom back out somehow. There you go. Okay. So I'm just going to set this back to 0 because why not? Okay. One other thing that I forgot to make mention of is that in the rig, I'm going back to the original file. Actually, I'm going to go back to, I'm going to open up my Unreal rig. So I'm just going back to the Unreal rig, the one that we just referenced in, but I'm looking at the rig itself. So this is just it originally by itself. The one thing that I also wanted to say that you want to probably add is this selection set. And you may or may not have used selection sets before, but basically all it is just saying, okay, I want to select all these things and I'm going to be using them later. And I just want to be able to select them quickly. And to select them quickly, once you do it, you can just select it, right mouse click on it and select membership set, and then it'll select the things. When we export out to Unreal, when we're exporting our characters out to Unreal, we want to be able to export out the geometry and the geometry and the joints. Those two things are the most important things because that's what Unreal is going to look at when we export out these things. It'll bring in some textures, but for the most part, to be able to get the animation working, you need to have the joints selected and you need to have the geometry selected. And you also need to have those selected consistently. Like if you miss a joint or you miss a piece of geometry, if you bring that into Unreal and then you export out another bit of animation, it might be, if you miss that joint selection, it might be like, oh, I didn't find that joint. Sorry, I can't import your animation. So you need to make sure that you have those things selected. Yeah, okay. So the way that I made my selection sets, so if I look at the geometry, okay, so in my geometry, I basically have the feet geometry and I have the hip geometry, which is essentially all of the arms and legs and stuff. I just combine them all into one object. You could have them separate objects. It honestly doesn't matter. But what you need to do is to be able to select both of these. So the other thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to have the root joints and select all of the joints that you're going to be having. So all of these joints, all of these joints, and all of these joints. So all of the joints you're going to want it to do. Now, if I was to create my character, and if I wanted to create this selection set, which we'll use here in just a second, to make this, what I would do is I would just select all of the geometry, and I'm holding Control right now to select those. I'm going to hold Control to select the joints, and then I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom and hold Shift, and I'm going to select that last joint that I have, holding Shift, selecting the last joint. Okay, so all of the things that I'm going to select that I would want to export out to Unreal, that's what I have. And then I could hold my space bar. And then I'll go into my space bar and then go to, what am I doing? Edit. And then, create. Going into create, and then under sets, I'm going to create a set, but I'm not just going to create a set. I'm gonna click on the option box, and that's gonna give me the option. And then in this, I would say like, leg, whatever you want to do is talk about that, put this on. I usually put in like whatever the name of the character is, and then EXP. Okay. And then if I do an apply and close, you'll see that now there is a, I'll make this smaller here. Now you can see that there's another selection set, leg export. This is the one that I'm using, that I'm going to use for the demonstration, but that's how you create a selection set. If I wanted to select those things, I just click on it, right mouse, and then do select set membership, and then you can see it's selecting all the things. You can open it and then see all the things that are in there. And if you maybe missed something or you removed it by accident, you can just take, like if I wanted to add, say like this IK handle into the bottom of this, like if I was like, oh man, I really want to get this IK into the leg selection, all I can do is just select it, middle mouse click, and just drag it down to that leg export. Now that selection is down in there somewhere, leg IK. There it is. Okay. I'm just gonna delete this for right now because I don't need it, because I already have a selection set that I've already created for this character, and that's what I'm going to use. Any questions on selection sets? These get very helpful and very important when we start moving from Unreal to the next portion. And that's what we're going to do right now. So I have my character. I don't have any animation on it yet, but I have a character. And so I have this, this character rig file. And all it is just having the characters, just importing them in so that they have a name set. And then I'm going to use that to export the rigs to Unreal so that they're ready to receive animation files. So I'm going to export out. Oh, the way that I found personally, and you might find something different. The way that I personally found to get the rig in there the best way for me is through the FBX export. But then I use the animation exporter or the game exporter to export out the animation. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. But if I wanted to export out this character, I have my leg person 1 export, right? So you can see the leg person 01, the leg person, this is my selection set. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to right mouse click on it, and I'm going to select the set members. So it's selecting all of the geometry and all of the joints there. When you export to, there's a question. When you export to Unreal, are you exporting the reference file of the character or the direct character file? You are exporting out the direct file. Like this, once it leaves Maya, you're making an FBX file. It's going to then pull that direct character into Unreal, but it's not going to be like your original file. You're going to make an FBX file, and then from that FBX file, that goes into Unreal. Does that help? Okay. All right, so I have that stuff. I have that character selected. I'm not selecting any of the controls. Don't need any of that stuff. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a file and then export, export selection. And I can click on that. And then what I'm looking for is down here, type, file type that I'm going to be doing. It's an FBX export. In Maya, if you don't have FBX, if you don't see that, all you need to do is go to Windows, go down to settings and preferences, go to plugin manager, and then all you have to do is just type in up at the top FBX, boom, there it is. And then you would want to turn on the game FBX exporter because we'll need that later. And then the FBX Maya mill, just turn that on, load that. Okay, so I have that on. I'm going to go to export selection because I don't want to export everything. I just want to do the thing that I have selected. And so for that one, yeah, just click on FBX exporter. And then in here, what I, again, personally like to do is I like to make, when I have my FBX files, I like to make a to Unreal folder. And so not in my animation beginner, but I have my animation start. So I have my Maya files going into the Maya file, and I'm just going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call that to Unreal. Okay, and I'm going to put my character in there. I'm going to call this person leg person 01. I'm going to just go through the things here. I could smooth the groups. That'd be fine if you had some extra smoothing in there, smoothing mesh. What else do we have? Animation is usually checked on by default. You just want to turn that off. We aren't exporting out any animation. You don't need to have that on. The other default thing that is usually on is cameras. We don't have any cameras. You can shut that off. We also don't have any lights. If for whatever reason that's on, we aren't exporting out any lights. I don't even think any audio either. You can turn that off. If the lights and audio and camera are on, it's not going to make or break. It's just adding more junk that you don't need. But if it's on there, it's not going to kill you. Used units. Okay, so right now we're using centimeters. That's fine. We'll go with that for right now. This is the big one. Like I said, I like to have my stuff that when I go from Maya to Unreal, I want to have everything set up. I want it and a 1-for-1 transfer. And so for those of you not familiar with Maya, if we look down in the lower left here, has a Y up axis. So the way the world works in Maya, Y is up, Z is forward, and X is to the left and right. Okay. So if I look at Unreal, if I go into Unreal and I look at its coordinate system, you can see that that Z is up, X is back into the world, and Y is left and right. Okay, so right there, it has a different world coordinate system. And generally, most things besides Maya that I've found are mostly Z up. So why Alias decided to go with Y up, I have no idea. But in here, what you'll want to do is where it says up axis Z, that is not saying, okay, what is the axis currently? It's asking you, how do you want the object exported? What do you want their orientation to be? You want their Z up? Yes, that's what we want. We want Z up. Sacrilege. Why up all the way, right? Yeah, so Z up, that's what we want. So we're putting Z up. FBX format. I personally am a huge proponent of ASCII. That seems to be the one that can go, like if we export this out and you need to bring it into Unreal for whatever, or Unreal for whatever, hopefully you want to bring it into, if you want to bring it into like Blender, you'll want to have it in ASCII. It doesn't like binary files. So generally, just to help keep everything as open to other programs, just turn it to ASCII and that will work. Version, I've been using 2020 and it's been going pretty good, but if you don't want to try 2020 or try something else, I've also found that 2014 is a very stable FBX version. So 2020 or 2014, everything else in the middle, meh, take it or leave it. Your mileage may vary on any of that stuff. Okay, so I have, that's all the kind of exporting stuff there. I have leg person one, it's going to my Unreal stuff. And then I'm going to say export selection. And right now it's just exporting the character. It's saying I might have some warnings that, you know, some things it might not like the way they go. Some constraint exports failed. Okay, fine. You know, it might have some problems. Those problems may or may not be an issue. I would say if you run into those problems, just kind of close it out and then bring it into Unreal and see if it actually becomes a problem, because 9 times out of 10, it isn't actually a problem. The other thing that I've noticed with this, I'm just going to go into my to file reference editor. Where's my reference editor? There we go. I'm just going to shut off leg person 2 for right now. Okay, so we exported out leg leg person 1, and I don't know what is happening there, but for some reason it just doesn't, that right arm or that left arm there just, I don't know, just checks out. And so what I would want to do is just kind of just give that a wiggle if you want to get it back. It ends up not becoming a problem, but for some reason when it's exporting out in FBX format, it gets a little shy and tucks up under the shoulder. I don't know what the deal is with that. Okay. Any questions thus far? Because now we're going to get into the Unreal kind of side of things. Wide of the sky.
I just had a quick question.
Yep.
So when you're exporting out that model into Unreal using FBX, using the selection set. So we use unit conversion, like axis conversion to Z. So that tells Unreal to use Maya's Y values as the Z values in Unreal so that things match up.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
That's well said. Let's see. If you were importing an already animated scene with cameras, lights, would you be able to turn those on and just use Unreal for rendering? You can pull in Maya cameras. I'm not so sure about the lights. You could probably, I don't know, attach a joint to a light and then bring that in if you wanted to have like the space of things set up, but then you'd want to apply that into Unreal. I don't know if there's anybody else on here that might have any other things on that, but you can pull cameras in, no problem, but you probably want to set your lights up in Unreal. Yeah, so if you have like, you don't want to set your entire scene, like your rendering and your texturing in Maya if you're going to be using Unreal for rendering. You're going to want to get it for animating and for setting the character up, but then like your lighting and you're applying your textures and shaders are all going to happen in Unreal. Okay. Any other questions on any of that?
I had a quick question, sorry, again.
Sure, go for it.
So does the name of your FBX file matter in terms of like namespacing and like getting your animation export to get applied to that same rig?
No, the name of your file and the namespacing are two separate things. The namespacing will be like, you know, you have your named object or your named FBX will be a container for the joints and the geometry and the namespacing all in there. Whatever you call the actual FBX file, that doesn't matter at all.
Okay. Would you need to create a namespace in your rig and name that so that it gets matched up in Unreal or?
Right. Well, that's what this folder is for, or this that's what this character rig exp file that I made. It's kind of like it would be like an animation file, you know, but this is something that I do. I'll make a character file that will just pull in all of the characters. Like if I had like 100 characters that I'm going to be using for my animation, I would just have them all in here, all at 0, just hanging out. And then I would just export them out from this file, because this, once you bring it into a Maya file, it puts the namespace on there. And then every time you export out, it's already going to have the namespace associated. And once you export out the rig, it won't matter because you're going to be exporting out from an animation file that's already going to have the namespace. The thing that you just have to worry about, or the thing that you just have to make sure, is that if you're pulling a character into another animation file, that you make sure that you name that character the same like namespace extension that you would, you know, that you brought it in for this file.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So after you create your model in your initial scene, you make another scene where you reference in all of your other models you're going to need for Unreal. Leave them at 0, and then put the namespaces on when you do that. And then that's how Unreal will know how to match it up with the animation file, because you'll just be referencing something they've already referenced. Okay, I understand.
Exactly. Yep.
Thank you.
100%. All right. Yeah, really good questions. Okay. So now if I wanted to import this character into Unreal, I'm gonna shut this sequence off. So for those of you that may not have used Unreal before, this is generally the basic setup of it when you get it. There's a list of things that you can use over here, some lights, cinematic camera stuff, there's virtual production stuff, geometry, and a whole bunch of things in there. But we're just going to leave it on basic for right now. You have some other buttons up here that we'll use. We'll use the cinematics one so that we can take some, so we can make a timeline and then export out our animation into a render. Then we have the world outliner, which is over here. And this is all of the stuff that is in our scene. So currently we have an atmospheric fog. And if you want to move around in Unreal, it's the right mouse button will kind of let you, right mouse button and click will let you look around. Left mouse button and push and pull will zoom you in and out. Holding those together, left and right together, will let you move up and down. And you can also use your wheel to zoom in. That'll also do that. And if you and if you right mouse click, so you can right mouse click and look around. And then if you want to go like forward or down like that. The other thing that you can also use is use the W, like the W keys. I was using them and now they appear to not be working. Oh, there we go. Okay, so you have to hold the left mouse button. I don't know why. I guess muscle memory. If you wanted to just move forward and backwards, you hold the left mouse button and press W. If you want to go back, it's left mouse button and hold S. If you wanted to strafe left or right, then it's A or D while you're holding the left mouse button. So those are a bunch of different ways that you can get around to what you want to see in there. Okay. One other thing that drove me batty is like seeing all this garbage on here. And these are basically like all of this stuff. Like if I didn't want to see the sun and sky, I could click and turn that off. There's a sky atmosphere. I can turn that off as well. There's light source that I can also shut off. And then there's atmosphere capture. And then there's what atmospheric fog I could shut off. And now my scene is basically blank there, right? So you can turn all that stuff on, but if it drives you bananas and you want to have it on, but you don't want to see it, the shortcut for that is just G, and it puts it into like game mode, and that will get rid of that stuff if you don't want to see it on the screen. But we're going to leave it there for right now so that you'll know where it is. This other thing, for if you're doing animation like for TV or film, this game start, you don't need a player start. You can get rid of that. We don't need it. Okay. And then later on, you can remove your floor if you want to. We'll leave the floor for right now because we want to have something our character can get into. Okay. And then when you select something, you can see down here, there's going to be the attributes, and you can scroll down and play around with the attributes for that. And that's just where, whenever you select something, the attributes will automatically pop up at the bottom here. To the left side, now, I don't know why they do it, but I think in version 5 now, this little kind of like content window opens up. And so what this is the folders. So with that closed, this little thing, with that closed, you're basically in the content folder. But I personally like to see the folders that things are in. So I like to just turn that on. So right now we're in the content folder. If we were to look at the, here we go. If we were to look at the Unreal folder, this is all of the files that are in that folder. So the config, this content folder right here is the same content folder that has the stuff in it. So you can see this is from the animation beginner, but if I go to animation start, and then I go into the content in here, this content shows the collection and developers. We aren't actually seeing that stuff, but you can see this main UM map. That's this map right here. And then the build data, that's also right there. We aren't going to do anything with those. Basically what this is the level, the Unreal level. So we're currently in the main level that this is working in. The Explorer is just this little tilde key. It's, or not a tilde, but like a little arrow kind of thing to show or hide the content there. Okay. What else? Okay, so we want to bring in our characters. So what you can start doing is you can start creating or building the folders that you want in your content folder. So we're going to have a character folder. So I'm just going to do, I right mouse clicked and brought up this list, and I'm going to the very top where it says new folder, and I'm going to click on new folder, and I'm going to call this character. Okay, and then I'm just going to double click into it. And now I'm in my character folder, and you can see that I'm in content and then character folder, and there's nothing in that folder. If I right mouse click and then go to import to game, this is where you're going to be doing a lot of your importing stuff, is just by going to import assets, and it'll import either textures or whatever you want to import. This is like a universal importer. And so what I want to do is I want to go to my animation start, and I have those files in my Maya files, and then to Unreal. This is my leg person FBX. I'm going to click on that and hit open. And this little window will pop up, and it'll say, okay, you're bringing in an FBX file. You obviously have a character in there. You know, it has some geometry, some skin weights, and it'll tell you, okay, it's a skeletal mesh, and you're going to import the mesh. Yes, you want to have all of that stuff. There are certain cases where you might not want to import that stuff in, but when you're importing something in for the very first time, you're just going to leave all of this stuff at the top alone. The one thing that you're going to want to do, though, is you're going to want to click on this down arrow. So right underneath where it says skeleton, there's a little kind of like down arrow. And when you click on that down arrow, there's a very, very important button that is off by default, and it's import morph targets. Why this is off by default, I have no idea. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it helps reduce resources when you don't need it, but you have morph targets or blend shapes. You're going to want to have that on. If you don't have that on, your blend shapes aren't going to come in. Okay, so that's the main thing that you want to do when you're importing a character for the first time. Any other things that you have in here? Again, there is like force front axis to be X, and you could change your materials. You could have it find different materials. I think you can even, yeah, under translate, you can change the scale here and change the rotation. But again, you want to set it up so that you want to have a one-to-one from Maya. So if you did things correctly, you shouldn't have to scale things up or down. Okay, it should already be scaled the way that you want it to be. So with all that set, I'm just going to click on import all, and it's going to go through and import the character. And it's doing all the things, and it says, oh, you might have some problems here. Okay, fine. I may have some problems, but we'll see what happens. So I'm just going to close that out. And then you can see I have my character here, okay? And then there are a couple different things. So in here, I have the textures or the shaders for my character. These are all those shaders that we applied there. And those all come in to Unreal because we placed them in there from Maya. So that is something that you're going to want to have. You do have this skeletal mesh. So this skeletal mesh is essentially the geometry, just the geometry, nothing else, the geometry, that's it. If I double click on this, it will open up this window that will show me, it'll show me the character in here, and I can hold Alt and left mouse click, and it will show all of the Unreals. You know, I can just zoom in on it. I can get kind of close to it, but again, it's kind of small because I didn't change the scaling. And if you wanted to isolate, if you wanted to say like, okay, where are the pants? I can click on isolate and it'll just show me the pants. And here you can see, you know, the difference between like leaving it, you know, the way Maya had it or smoothing it out. You can see that difference. That's if you don't put the blend node on there, then that is what you'll see. Okay, got to kind of move it along because I'm going to run out of time before I get some animation in here. So to close this window, you could either left mouse click and drag it next to the main window. So we have a main tab. And when I double clicked on this geometry, it opened up a new tab. So you might see it there, you might not. All you have to do, you can close these and you can open them back up. Don't be afraid of, you know, ruining anything. You can get back into things super quick. The other important thing here is this leg person skeleton that I have. If I double click on that, this shows me a different list. And you can see this is all of my joints in there. Okay, that's all it is, all the joints that are connected. And we also have our blend shapes. Okay, so this is my object space and this is my tangent space. And if you guys remember what I said, tangent space is really good. That's going to give you, oh, maybe not not tangent space. Object space is really good. There we go. There's my object space. I'll set this one back to 0. Boom. Okay, so the object space is really good and we'll have some nice results out of that. If I set this back to 0 and I go into tangent space, this is what you'll end up with. That is probably not where you're going to want to find. Okay, so this is where it becomes important which way you're doing your blend shapes. So if you have them as tangent space, you're going to end up having some issues and crying a lot. That's what I ended up, again, doing it on my first thing, finding out what works, what doesn't work. That's how I found out that the tangent space matters. Okay. So if I wanted to bring my character in, you know, there's a lot of things that I can, oh, this is also, this is physics assets. So if you had your character doing like ragdoll or, you know, because this is a game simulator, essentially, you could have it ragdoll and do a whole bunch of things. Generally, for the most part, I haven't done too much with the physics assets. So you as probably an animator are probably not going to be doing too much with it as well for right now. But if I wanted to get my character on stage, say, okay, I'm ready to go. You don't want to pull your geometry, your skeletal mesh out there, because this is just the geometry. The thing that you want to pull out is your skeleton, your leg person skeleton. You left mouse click and I just drag it onto the stage and I let it go. And you can see that there's a little thing there. And you can also see that there's a leg person skeleton in my scene now, in my world. If I wanted to zoom in and see it, just like Maya, I could press F and it will zoom in there. Now, if you noticed, I had to zoom, the default for Unreal is way back here, right? But what I'm zooming into is this little tiny thing. And this is where scale becomes important again, okay? I didn't scale it up because I wanted to show you the difference between if we had a scaled character or a not scaled character, what that would look like. Okay. Also, if I wanted this character to be at the world center, again, having the character set to 0, 0, I can just go in here and say 0 and 0. I'm just going into transform and I'm just changing these transforms just like you would in Maya, just highlighting these, setting them to 0. I'm hitting tab, hit 0 and tab, and then it will go through. The other thing that it will also do, if I bring this back, see this little, it's super small. But this was something that I didn't know when I was first starting Unreal, is that whenever you see one of these little hooks here, it's basically like a return reset to default. So if you want to, if you're making some changes, and if it doesn't have a one of those little hooks behind it, that means it's already at the default. You know, if you want to set this to the default, you can just click on that button and it will reset it to whatever value its default is. So if you start messing around with something, you're like, oh man, I changed the color. I want to go back to the original color. just hit that little, it'll create a new thing. If I just change this a little bit, you can see that it'll pop up a new reset to default. Click it again. Now the thing is back to world center. Okay. So again, just like Maya, I can put my cursor in the window here and press F, and now I'm zoomed in. Now, the character is below the ground because this ground is actually kind of thick. See, it has some thickness to it. So I can just bring this guy, pull it up a little bit, and then I believe it's the end key, the END. So the end, END key. If you hit that, it'll bring it down to the ground and place the character, place the character to the ground there. All right. The other thing that I also wanted to show, now it's not, again, the scaling is having some effect on how much that is going on there. The other thing that I want to talk about real quick is up in the upper corner here. If I hit, let's see, E key, you can see that's going to be my rotate, and R is actually going to be scale. Okay, very much like Maya. And then this window, this thing next to it, this is whether it's going to transform in object space, or if you click on this, if it's going to transfer in world space. Like if I'm moving something, I can click on this and it'll either transform in world space or in local space. So if something is rotated, you might want to move it. Let's see here. There is snapping. So you could have it snap to the grid, and this is how much it's going to snap. You could either have it by 1 or by 10, or you can shut snapping off altogether. Okay, and so that should, yeah, that should now allow me to move this character and place it where I wanna place it. Okay, and yeah, it's still having some issues there, but that's fine. For the rotation, if I don't, like right now, if I rotate it, it's going to rotate every 10 degrees. Okay, and if I shut this off, now it's going to rotate freely. So depending on what you want to do. This is the other big thing that I was having issues with, is the speed of the camera. If I'm using my left mouse button and W keys, you can see that I'm like flying really fast here, you know, and that might be way too much, and you might get whiplash from all of this movement. And so you can click on this. This is your camera speed, and you can slide that down to be 2. 2 usually gives you enough kind of movement around there that you can play around. If you need it smaller, then you can just make it smaller. Okay, so that was one of the things that helped me kind of slow things down. I was like, what? Drive me bananas. Okay, so that is just bringing the character in. Now, if I wanted to bring in another character that was actually the right scale, say we'll create our character 2, I'm going to go back to my Maya file. So this is my Maya file, and we have, I'm going to turn on, because I shut it off, I'm going to go back to my reference editor, and I'm going to turn back on person 2, and I'll just shut off person 1 for right now. Okay, so now when I select this, this is going to be leg person 2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this character to, I don't know, like 10 or so. There we go. So now this would be more of an appropriate scale for a, you know, like a human character or a little kid or something like that. Okay. Right now it's like probably like a you know, I'm not entirely sure what the scale is on this, but you know, it's probably like 100 centimeters or so. So that is, this would be more of the size that you want. If your grid in Maya is small at the feet, that's closer to the right size. If your grid is way bigger than your character, when you pull it into Unreal, you're going to find that the character is just going to feel small. Okay. So again, if I'm exporting the character out, I want to export out character 2. I'm going to go to, I'm going to select my export, my selection set here. So I'm selecting it with the left mouse button, then right mouse clicking and select set membership. So it's now I have all of the parts that I need. I have all the geometry and I have all the joints, and I don't have to think about trying to find it because it's already been set up. Now I can go to File, and I can go to Export Selection, and left click on that. Let's see. You press to get the file prompt. Oh, file prompt was, sorry. If you don't hear, if I just miss over you, just scream out there. The file prompt, all I did is just right mouse click in the space here, and then there was import, and that'll import your character. Okay, back here. So I'm back into Maya, and now I want to bring in leg person 2. So I'm going to rename this person leg person 02. And down under my wherever it is. What am I looking for? I am looking for my namespaces. Why is that? Oh, no, I've already done legs. I've already done namespaces. Sorry, I'm spacing out here. Okay, so this is just exporting out into FBX. So all I do is just, I don't need animation. I don't need cameras. I don't need lights. The automatic render. Oh, I know what I wanted to do before I did this. Oh yeah, I already scaled it. Already scaled it. I'm going ahead of myself here. Sorry, back to export selection. There we go. Okay, so I don't need any of that stuff. I need at the bottom just to make sure that I have Z up. You want to make sure you have Z up, and you know that it's ASCII type file, and I'm calling this leg person 02. And I'm going to export selection. There it goes. That's going to say, okay, you might have some problems. That's fine. You know, has a little issue with its shoulder, but it ends up working out fine here. Okay. So now back at this system here, I'm going to go back to, and I'm still in my character. Now you could create, like right now I have a character. I could create another folder in here, and I could call this like person 01, and I'll just put like underscore, like, you know, call it like person character. And some people who are like Unreal artists, if there are any in here, might be cringing, but for animators, you know, just getting the animation going is all we need. So I'm going to, all I'm going to do is just left mouse click and drag all of these into this. And then I'm going to do a move here. So they're all going to move in there. And then I'll just make another folder. So I'll just make a new folder, and I'll call this leg person 02 folder, and then character folder. Yep. Thanks for coming, Natia. So the leg person 2 character here, I'm going to double click on leg person 2 folder, and now I'm just going to import my leg person 2 in here. So I right mouse click in this empty space, I go to import, and I'm going to import leg person 2, and I'm going to do an open. And again, I just want to make sure that the morph targets are on. They're already on because I've already imported something, and I'm going to do an import all. And you know, if you might have some problems in there, you might not. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that leg person 2 skeleton, and I'm just going to drop it into the scene, left clicking and dragging, and you can see the scale of my character now is different than what I had before. And I just press end or down. I'll just bring this character down. And so you can see now the difference between having a regular size character and or my little kind of mini character here, right? So just make sure that you have all of that stuff have the character scaled correctly, because this is going to render out much better. And if you're using particles or any other kind of system like that, this character will do you much better than anything else. Okay. Any questions so far? Because we're going to start getting into animation now. Nothing? Okay. Okay. Yep. Do I hear a question coming?
I have just one question, sorry.
Sure, go for it.
So in Unreal, if you zoom out too far, do you get put out of like the scene or the sky sphere? Because I think I got put out of the outside of the sky sphere at one point, and I could not see any of my characters for a while.
You mean like this thing that if you select the sky sphere and you hit F like that, you're out of there like
Oh,
that?
okay, yeah, then that's what happened because I got zoomed
Yeah,
out of
so all you have to do is you can select something like anything in here. Like you can select your floor and hit F and it will bring you back into your scene, or you can select your character and hit F and that will bring you into your back to your scene.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, any other questions? No? Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an animation file, and just to help speed things up, I am going to use this character rig export. Since I've already referenced it in, I could create a new file and I could reference them in and make sure they're named character 1 and character 2, but I already have this file in here and they're already named. So I'm just going to save this thing, save scene as, and I'm just going to have this be not character rig export, but I'm going to call this character, and I'll just put an anim file, like ANIM. I just put it as a capital character anim because I'm just keeping this basic. If you were going to set up like a bunch of scenes, you would want to number the scenes and all of that stuff. But I just put anim on the end of it so that I know that this is an animation file and not like a character rig file or something else. I know that this is all just going to be animation. That's all I care about in here. And I'll save it to the same place that this character rig file is. Okay, so now you can see that this is my character animation file. So I have 2 characters in here. I'll turn on the other little mini me, wherever it is. Reference character, I'll turn this little guy on. And now I have my 2 little characters, right? I have 1 and 2. And then I'm not going to get too far into animation because, you know, I just want to show you how to get some animation in there. We'll do like a blend shape and get that going. So what I'm going to do is in my animation file, I want to make sure that the animation file is set to not 24 frames per second, but I'm going to set it to 30 frames per second. Unreal works in 30 frames per second. So you'll want to make sure that your animation file is working at 30 frames per second. And I'm going to click save. Okay. Now with this file clicked saved for 30 frames per second, now you can see the timeline has changed a little bit and all of that is good. If you've done animation and you're like, oh shoot, I forgot, you can still change it to 30 frames per second. It'll just transfer over better between Maya and Unreal. You'll get more consistent results. Okay, so I'm gonna, don't judge me on my super low bad animation, but all I'm gonna do is just throw some we'll just throw a little happy dance on this guy. So we'll go here, and then I'll go to frame 20, and we're going to go down a little bit. I'll hit S and set a key. I'm going to go up to frame 40, and we're going to go over here and hit S, and then we're going to go down to 60 and hit S there, and then we'll go to 80 and hit S over here. And then we'll just set the character at like 100 and we'll set it to just 0. Okay, so I have an animation that has my character going like this. You know, I actually could, you know, repeat the animation and just have it loop or whatever, but I'll just end it right there. So that's going to be, oops, set that to 0, 0 and 0. Okay, so then it's gonna, you know, if it looped, it would just go back to here and then it would start going back again. All right, so I have that animation going. The other thing that I'll want to do is I want to show that the blend shape is working. So if I wanted to animate the blend shape, you could rig this up much better, that the blend shape control is attached to like a node in here for, you know, one of these attributes for smiling, or you can put it on the body. But if you want to just really brute force it, I have the shape node in here under Windows, animation editor, shape editor. If I click on shape editor, you can see I'm working with person 2. So that's the one that I want to look at. And over here, I have my keys. This little dot here is going to be the keys. And I know that object space, since I did that test, I know that object space is the one that's going to work. So I'll say that at frame 1, it's going to be just like this. At frame, whatever it is down here is going to be a big smile. And then it's going to keep that smile till, let's see, is going to keep that smile till here. Make sure that there's a key there. It'll be still another key when it's up here high, and then another one when it's low. And then when it gets low over here, then maybe we'll say that it's going to start to not have a blend shape on it. And then we'll just keep it off. Okay, so it's going to be smile, and then it'll stop being smiley when it gets down to the bottom. Okay, so that's going to be the animation that we're going to use for this character. Now, all of the things, if I did like the foot roll, I'll just add some foot roll to it just to show you that that's also working. So I'll go here, and then I'll make a key there, and then when it goes up to here, I'll do like ball roll, and I'll give them a little ball roll there. And then when it comes back down, I'll put the foot back down to 0, and we'll just leave it like that, just to show you that it'll do some animation there. Okay. And so that's going to be character 1. And I'm also going to animate character 2, just character 1, just to show that we have some animation. And I'm just going to do a little less animation on this character. I'll just have this character kind of going down here, way down there, and then I'll have it going there, and then we'll have this character going over here, and then we'll have this character going back up to, let's see, where does this guy end? We'll have them end at both the same places. This one ends at 100, and this one will also end at 100. So I'll go to frame 100, and we'll just set this back to 0. Okay, so this guy's, they're going to be animating at the same time and then coming back up. Okay, and then I'll also put a blend shape just to show you that blend shapes work. We'll put a blend shape on this character. I'm going to select it, go into Windows, what is it? Reference, nope, under animation, shape editor. Okay, and then I will set, so this is the second one that I'm going to do. I'll set a key at the beginning pose. I'll set a key and have it smile when it gets down to the bottom, and have it move over, do this little funky dance, and click on here. And then when it gets up to 0, it will be nothing. We'll shut that off. There we go. Okay, so it comes down, smiley, gets smiley, and then stops being smiley. All right. Okay. Any questions so far? All I did is just put some animation on this for like you would in Maya, however you would do. Any questions?
I had a quick question.
Sure.
This may not be related to like Unreal, but I can't key anything with the model I've referenced it, like this one. It just says no objects are able to be selected to be keyed. I'm not sure why, but I don't want to derail it if it's like a separate issue.
Yeah. I'll have to take a look at that. It might be, I don't know what the issue could be with that. Yeah, sorry. We'll have to do this, do that offline. But yeah, I don't I don't know anything off the top of my head that would stop that from being able to be keyed.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Okay, no worries.
But
Thank
we'll
you.
take a look at it and we'll help you get going later. Okay, so I have my animation. Now this is again where the export stuff comes in handy. Now, when I do animation export, I like to use the game exporter because this works out really well. This game exporter has, you can export out models and you can do that, but up here is a animation clips thing that you can export out. And you can export out all, or you can export out the selection, like you could export out all of the stuff that we selected, or there's this option for object set. And so if I click on that, there's this down arrow and I'll say, okay, I want to export out person 1. So it's going to automatically select this stuff, which is awesome because then I don't even have to worry about it. Then I'm going to, down here under clip name, I need to know what I'm animating. So I'm going to click on that and then I'm just going to name this thing. So I'll call this person leg person 01, and then I'll do underscore and I'll call it dance, and then underscore 01, and then underscore, and I'm just going to put a anim so that I know it's an animation file. Just something I like to do on there. Some people just put like a capital A. So this is going to be my leg person 1, and I'm doing it one character at a time. And then once I open up the settings, I'm just clicking on settings here. I want not animation Y. I don't want world up Y. I want Z up. So it's the Z up. And then I want the file type. Again, I like them to be ASCII in case I need to get in there or in case I want to bring it over to Blender. And then that's, I like to also use 2020. I've been having good success with that. And then I need a path. Where is this file going to go? Well, it's going to go to the same place that I've been having them go, not beginner because that was my old file, but we're going to go to animation start. And I have a Maya file in there and I just have a to Unreal. This is where I have my character files. You can make an animation file if you want to just keep organized that stuff, but I just need the directory. That's the directory I'm going to use and I'm going to hit choose. And when I choose that, that's all I need to do. Now, the key to know if your animation worked is when you hit export, if you see the timeline kind of like going a little bit and you see this thing chugging. If you don't see it chugging, now I don't have that many keys, so it really just did it pretty quick. But if you don't see Maya working a little bit, chances are it didn't work. And while we're here, we'll also export out version 2. So I'm going to put, I'm just going to have my character person 2, and I'm making sure at the top that I'm going to select the person 2 animation out. Oh, also you can change your start and end times if you wanted to have more or less time in there. You can put that, you can change the length of your clip. What else? And then everything else is pretty much the same. This is going to be, I said 2. I don't want to change that number 2. Sorry about that. This is going to be dance animation 1 for person 2. There we go. That's the important one. That it's just not really that important, but it's not version 1. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep straight whose animation goes with who. And then I'll hit export and you can see kind of the timeline kind of flickers there and I hit OK and then that goes. All right. So I need to really fly here because I'm going to run out of time. So in here, I have my my character in here. I'm going back into content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, instead of in the character, I could in the character here, I could create like an animation folder, or I could put the animation folders in here if I wanted to. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to character and I'm just going to create just a general animation folder. So I right mouse click and I just click on new folder. And I'm going to call this animation clips. Okay, double click on animation clips and I right mouse click and I go to import. Again, same thing that you would do for all the other imports. And I'm going to import person one dance. So I'm opening that person one dance. It'll say, what are you bringing in? Okay, I'm bringing in the animation file. This is important right here. So this was animation person dance one. I need to associate a skeleton with that. So I click on this none. And I say, okay, I want to apply this to dance to the skeleton person one. And that's where the namespaces comes into play. Okay. So I click on that, namespaces, all of that stuff works well. And I think pretty much everything is good on this. Sometimes this use T0 as reference pose helps if you're having problems. If you're not, just try it. And if that doesn't, have any problems, then fine. So I'm just leaving everything else alone. This is the important thing, making sure your skeleton is attached there. And then I'm going to import all. And there may or may not be some issues. Okay, no issues. Not quite what I was expecting. What did I do? Skeletal mesh and assets. I think I did something wrong here. Let me think. Let me just delete this stuff that I have in here, because this shouldn't be. It should only be like one file that came in. So let me try that again. I'm going to right mouse click. I'm going to do import game character options. I'm doing my dance person one FBX and then open. Oh, I think this was it, the skeletal mesh. Okay, so I'm not importing the mesh and all of that stuff. So I'm shutting that off, and I'm still applying the leg person one skeleton. Let's see if that does it. Import all. There we go. That's more what I was looking for. Okay, so I just had to shut that off. So again, if I right mouse click and import part two, I want to do dance person two animation. I'm doing open, and I'm going to shut off import mesh. I shut that off, but I still need to apply skeleton two. Yep, you're welcome. Take it easy. And then I'm going to go to import all. Okay, and now I have my animations. Now, if you want to check them, all you have to do is just double click on it, and it'll show you your animation going. And there it is. There's my animation for leg person one. Here is the animation for leg person two. There it goes. Okay, and I can close this tab out. All right, so we have the animation going there. And now if I want to apply that to a character, I can do it in a couple ways. So the way that you kind of put this into a timeline, I'm going back to, I'll say content. I'll go to my content, and I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to do a new folder, and I'm going to call this, I don't know, scenes. And in scenes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a level sequence. And a level sequence is basically a sequence in my level. This is my level. And I'm going to create a bunch of different animations in that sequence. In cinematics, you can add a level sequence, or there's a master sequence. I don't have time to go into master sequence, but it's basically like a series of level sequences that are put together. So then maybe that'll be like part two of this demo. But just on the real basic level, if I do add level sequence here, add level sequence, it's asking me where I want to save it. I'll save it into the scenes. Okay, and I'm going to name this thing, I'll just call it dance party. Dance party level sequence. You could also call it L key, like a LS level sequence. I'm going to hit save. All right, so you open up this timeline. Now, one of the things that you want to do is, so it opens up this sequencer, but I also want to make sure that this sequence, this is what it created. I'm going to click and drag it into my scene. It doesn't matter where it goes, but I just want to make sure, oh, actually, it looks like it's already there. Ah, cool. It already made it in there. Perfect. So it's already there. I'm going to go back to my sequencer. What we need is we need a camera and we need our characters. And again, sorry, this is going to go real fast, but I kind of have to cut this short. I'm going to create the camera by clicking on this camera. It says create a new camera. There's my camera. I can change the aperture and bring that down, and it will, or bring it up, and it will bring things more into focus. If you want to have more you know, depth of field, you know, you can pull that in and play with that. But for right now, I'm just going to keep it all in focus. And all I'm doing just moving the scene however I'm going to want my camera to kind of be. And right now my camera is right there. That's where I want it. Right now I'm in the camera view. If I want to get out of the camera view, I go into and click on this button, and that will pop me out of the camera view. Okay, it still shows it in here because it's selected. If I zoom out, you can see that there's a camera, or if I deselect, there's a camera there. Whenever I click on the camera, it'll show me what the camera is seeing. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to just deselect that so that it's off. Now, when I want the animation on here, this is where it gets, you know, really pretty simple. All I have to do is take I have leg person 1 and leg person 2. So I'll do leg person 1. I'm going to left click and drag it down to the bottom here. Okay. And you can see that it adds it to the timeline. But then what I want to do is I want to add some animation to it. And I click on animation and I click on the animation dance. And now if I scrub back and forth, you can see my little guy, my little character here, just dancing its little heart out. Woo, there it goes. Okay. If I want my character person 2 to go, I left mouse click, drag person 2 to the bottom. And then I can click on animation, associate leg person 2. And you can see it also, it put it wherever the timeline is. And I can just drag this back down. So you can change where that happens. But if you do it at frame 0, then it'll just pull it in right away. But now you can see that those things are, they're all dance partying. There we go. And then if I hit play, this is my play button down here at the bottom. I click play, and you can see that that I can play it again. And there goes my characters. They're all playing. There they go. Okay, if I want to see what that looks like from the camera view, I can go up into perspective and I look at camera actor and I can hit play and see what it looks like from the camera view. That's what it'll look like from the camera view. I can go pop back out of this. I'm just going to add a quick light. To add a light up in the upper left-hand corner, I'm just going to add a spotlight, and I'm going to left mouse click and drag a spotlight there, and I'll just rotate it and just put some light on it. I'll pull this away a little bit, and down in the attributes, you can change the color. And so I'll just put a little, I don't know, red color on them. There we go. Okay, so now if I want to render this out, because I'm running out of time and we need to render this thing out, this is the little render queue. It's this little clapboard right here, that clapboard. I click on that, and when I do, I get this window here that is this movie render queue. And if I click on unsaved config file, what this will do is it'll show me what's going to be exported. If I click on this, it's going to do an export, a JPEG sequence. If I don't want that JPEG sequence, all I have to do is just hit delete and it's gone. And I can go into settings, and instead I can import a PNG sequence. Does this Zoom end at 6? It's going to end at 6 because there is another thing happening at RIT in the thing. So I'll send that. I'll send the directions for that in just a second. So if I set a sequence up, I can add in some anti-aliasing. So there's a whole bunch of settings that you can do in here, but the biggest one would be anti-aliasing. And I just have this up, and I would override the anti-aliasing and put in temporal. You can look in the notes as to why you would want temporal, but this would be a way to do it. And then, okay, so then I can look at my output, and this shows you where this is going to go. Right now, these frames are going to go to my animation start saved movie render. And then it's going to be named the sequence name and the frame number. And this is the resolution. If you want to change any of that stuff, you can change any of that stuff. The frame count and all this. And if you hover over the words, it'll pop up an explanation of what the things are. Okay, so I'm just going to hit render. I'll hit accept. And then once that gets accepted, I'm going to do render. And if I click on render, just make sure that I hit accept over here. That gets accepted. Now, if I hit render local, it's going to render it locally, and it's going to show me my camera view, and it will show me the render that I'm doing here. And you can see that it is rendering. One of the things that you may want to do is increase the subsampling, and that'll give you a better kind of frame rate. But you can see here it goes. And while that's doing that, I'm going to open up the files. I'm going to go into my content, animation start, and it saved it under saved, and then it saved movie renders. And these are my sequences. And then you can take those into After Effects and make a movie out of them. And in a nutshell, ta-da! Now you're done. Okay, so it rendered all the things, and so if I open this in like FCheck, if I open FCheck here, this is a Maya file thing. If I go into file, and then I want to open an animation, and then I'm going to go into my desktop, and where did I save this? I saved it under C, and then my D drive, and then D drive, and then where is it? D drive. What did I save this under? I saved it under Epic Games, and I saved it under Animation Workshops and Animation Start. And then under it was under saved, movie renders. And then if I select the first one, it should select the first one, does an image sequence. Yep, images, and open. I think that should open up the whole thing. Hopefully it does. Yeah, there it goes. And then this will be my render. Oh, like I said, you can open it in After Effects and then have that going and doing whatever you need it to do. Okay, so sorry, unfortunately, we don't have any time to do anything, but I'll put my email here in the chat. It is mjrpph@rit.edu. That is me. You can contact me anytime. And the other thing too is that, yeah, you're welcome. The other thing too is that, again, we have there is a film screening going on right now, getting ready to start. And you can, if you're at school, if you're at RIT, you can go to the Wegmans Theater. If you're not at the Wegmans Theater and you want to attend, you can go to this. It's free, and that is where you're going. And it's an hour long, and it's going to be a discussion. So you're all very welcome. Again, we'll probably have another one of these. I'll coordinate it a little bit more so that I don't run over any other things that are going on at school. So great. I'm glad you guys liked it. And if you have any questions, email me or stop me in the hall or come by my office. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Bye.